Nolan counted everything he owned. 20 things. A mattress on the floor, a laptop with a cracked screen, a phone, one pot, one pan, a coffee mug his mom gave him years ago, a toothbrush, a bar of soap, and for the first time in 3 years, he slept through the entire night without waking up drenched in sweat. 6 months before that night, his apartment in Portland looked like a warehouse that had given up on organization. Boxes from Amazon stacked by the front door, some of them unopened for weeks, the packing tape still shiny, a 65-inch TV he'd financed through Best Buy, still owed about 4 months on it, a leather couch on a 6-month payment plan, 3 payments left, but 3 payments too many, a coffee machine that could pull espresso, steam milk, and do 12 different drinks. He used it to make plain black coffee every morning. Shelves lined with books he'd never cracked open. Sneakers in boxes still wrapped in tissue paper. A gaming setup with LED strips that pulsed blue and purple like a nightclub for one. Enough kitchen gadgets, air fryer, sous vide wand, mandolin slicer, bread maker to stock a restaurant he'd never run. And parked downstairs, a 10-year-old Honda he'd paid off ages ago but refused to let go of. Insurance, gas, parking garage fees, and the occasional repair ate through $350 every month for a car he drove maybe twice a week. He wasn't wealthy. He was a graphic designer at a mid-size marketing firm, pulling in about $52,000 a year before taxes. But for a while, Portland felt manageable. Tight, sure, but manageable. Or at least that's the lie he kept whispering to himself every time his credit card got approved for another purchase he didn't need. Then 2025 hit like a bad diagnosis. Slow at first, then all at once. His landlord slipped a letter under the door one Tuesday morning. New lease terms, rent increase, 10%. It didn't sound catastrophic on its own, but 10% on top of everything else, the groceries that had nearly doubled, the gas prices that kept ticking upward like a scoreboard nobody wanted to watch, the insurance hikes, the streaming subscriptions that crept up a couple dollars each. It was the straw that buckled the whole frame. A $5 hike here, a $10 fee there, nothing you could fight. Just enough to quietly drown you. Nolan's paycheck didn't budge, and not 1 cent. So he started doing something he'd always avoided. Sitting down with the numbers. Late at night, kitchen counter, back of an old envelope, a pen that kept running dry. He added up every recurring charge, every minimum payment, every subscription he'd forgotten about. The answer wasn't complicated. The money was going everywhere, leaking out through 100 tiny holes he'd poked in his own life. The remaining payments on the couch and the TV, the car insurance and garage fees. For a Honda he barely drove. 2 subscription boxes he couldn't even remember signing up for. A gym membership he hadn't touched since February. 3 credit cards, each carrying a balance that fattened up a little more every month. The compound interest quietly ticking up while he slept. He started doing what desperate people do. Juggling. Pay the minimum on Visa this month, skip MasterCard, throw $50 at the department store card so they'd stop sending letters. It felt like spinning plates on sticks at a carnival. The crowd watches, you sweat, and sooner or later, one of them comes crashing down. Jess noticed before he said a word. She didn't live with him. She shared a place with a roommate a few blocks away. But she was at his apartment often enough that it might as well have been hers, too. 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, she'd come over after work, cook something in his kitchen, fall asleep on that overpriced leather couch watching whatever was on. She had a toothbrush in his bathroom in a drawer in his dresser. They'd been together a little over 2 years, and she had a talent for reading the temperature of a room the second she walked in. Jess stopped relaxing when she came over. She'd sit stiffly on the edge of the couch, eyes darting to the pile of unopened Amazon boxes. Nolan started snapping over nothing. A dish left in the sink became a 15-minute argument. A light left on in the hallway became proof that nobody respected anything. One night, around 2 o'clock in the morning, she found him sitting on the bathroom floor in his boxers. Back against the tub, scrolling through his banking app. The glow of the phone lit up his face, and she saw an expression there she'd never seen on him before. The look of a guy who just opened a bill he already knew he couldn't pay. She sat down next to him. He didn't look up. She put her hand on his knee. He still didn't look up. After that night, things changed. Jess started coming over less. 4 nights a week became 2, then 1. She'd text instead of showing up. The texts got shorter. Nolan noticed but didn't have the energy to ask about it. He was too busy staring at his bank app at midnight and pretending everything was fine during the day. One Saturday afternoon, she came over to pick up some clothes she'd left in his drawer. The place reeked of stale cardboard. Boxes blocked the hallway, forcing them to squeeze past each other just to get to the kitchen. She looked around and said something she'd probably been holding in for weeks. "Nolan, look at all this stuff. You can't pay your rent, but you got a bread maker you've used once. Do you even hear yourself when you talk about money?" he snapped. Told her she didn't understand, that it wasn't that simple, that she could go back to her nice little apartment with her roommate and her split rent and stop pretending she knew what drowning felt like. The silence after that was worse than the yelling. She stood in the kitchen doorway for a long time, keys in her hand, looking at him the way you look at someone you're about to stop trying to save. "I can't do this anymore," she said. She didn't yell. She just sounded completely drained. "I love you, but I can't keep watching you bury yourself and get mad at me for pointing at the shovel." She took her clothes, her toothbrush, and the photo she'd taped to his fridge. The two of them at the coast, Cannon Beach, wind in her hair, and she left. He heard her footsteps in the hallway, and then the building door, then nothing. Nolan sat on the leather couch, the one with 3 payments still on it, and stared at the fridge. The little rectangle of clean white where the photo used to be looked like a wound. The TV was on, playing something he couldn't hear over the ringing in his ears. He didn't sleep that night, not even close. 2 weeks crawled by. Nolan operated on autopilot. Work, home, microwave dinner, couch, phone, ceiling. Just didn't text. He picked up his phone a dozen times to call her and put it down every single time. The apartment was full of stuff and completely empty at the same time. Then came a Monday morning. He was in a team stand-up meeting, laptop open, pretending to care about a client's rebrand, when his phone started buzzing on the desk. Unknown number. He let it ring. It buzzed again and again. On the 4th call, he muttered an excuse, stepped into the hallway, and picked up. A woman's voice, flat, practiced, bored in the way only someone who makes 200 of these calls a day can be bored, told him his Visa account had been forwarded to a collections agency. She rattled off numbers, balance, accumulated interest, late fees, penalties. She read them like items on a grocery list. Nolan's hand was trembling when he hung up. His manager poked his head into the hallway and asked if everything was all right. "Yeah," Nolan said. "Wrong number." He sat on the couch that noon with a bottle of bottom-shelf bourbon. He wasn't much of a drinker, but the silence in the apartment was so loud it made his teeth ache, and Jess's voice kept playing in his head. "Look at all this stuff," he looping over and over alongside the numbers from the collections call. He looked around the room. The TV, the couch, the gaming rig, the shelves, all of it bought to fill something, and none of it had worked. He opened Facebook Marketplace, not to buy anything, for once. Just to scroll, just to look at other people's stuff. And then he did something he still can't fully explain. He picked up the TV remote, pointed it at the 65-inch screen, and turned it off. Then he grabbed his phone, took a photo of the TV, typed 65-inch Samsung, great condition, $400, and posted it before the sober part of his brain could talk him out of it. It sold in 2 hours. A guy named Rick showed up in a pickup truck, counted out $400 bills, and carried the TV through the front door. And Nolan stood in the middle of the living room, cash in hand, staring at the blank wall where the screen used to hang. His shoulders dropped. $400 barely dented what he owed, but staring at the empty wall, his chest felt a fraction lighter. The next morning, before coffee, he listed the couch, then the gaming rig, then the espresso machine, then the air fryer, the bread maker, the shelves, the books he'd never read, the sneakers still in boxes, the closet full of clothes he hadn't worn since before the pandemic. Everything had a price tag. Everything found a buyer. He called Best Buy and the furniture company the same week, used part of the cash from the sales to pay off the remaining balance on the TV financing and the last 3 installments on the couch. Cut those ties clean. No more monthly reminders of things he'd already gotten rid of. The car went last. Had been avoiding it. The old Honda felt like a safety net, even though he barely drove it. But when he laid it out on paper, insurance plus the parking garage plus gas plus the repair he'd been putting off came to almost $400 a month for a vehicle that sat underground 5 days out of 7. He listed it on a Wednesday, and by Friday, a woman named Clara paid him $3,200 cash. Clean title, no banks, No paperwork headaches. Just signed over the pink slip in a coffee shop parking lot and watched her drive it away. He stood on the curb and felt that same weird, almost laugh bubbling up again. Over those 3 weeks, strangers paraded through Nolan's apartment like it was an estate sale for a man who was still alive. A young couple took the bookshelf. A college kid hauled away the gaming chair. A woman drove 40 minutes for the air fryer and told him it was a birthday gift for her sister. His neighbor Dolores, a retired teacher who lived across the hall and watered her plants every morning at exactly 7:15, knocked on his door one Tuesday afternoon. She peered past him into the gutted living room and said, "Honey, are you moving?" He told her no. She studied him for a long second, the way teachers do when they know a kid is lying, and said, "Well, all right then." His mom called on a Sunday while he was boxing up the bread maker. She asked how things were going, the way she always did. Cheerful, surface level, expecting fine as an answer. He said fine. She asked about Jess. He said things were busy. He could hear her pause on the other end, that quiet half second where a mother's instinct picks up on something the words are trying to hide. But she let it go, and he was grateful for that. There was one night during the purge when he almost stopped. He was holding a framed photo he'd printed weeks ago to replace the one Jess had taken from the fridge. Same trip, Cannon Beach, different shot, slightly blurry, off-center, her laughing at something behind the camera. He sat on the bare floor with it for a long time. That one he kept, slid it into the backpack between his 2 spare shirts. When it was over, he made a list on his phone. Mattress, laptop, phone, 1 pot, 1 pan, 1 plate, 1 fork, 1 knife, 1 spoon, a mug, the one from his mom with a faded cartoon cat on the side, a backpack with 5 changes of clothes, toothbrush, soap, a towel, his wallet, a pair of running shoes, and the photo. 20 things. He stood in the apartment on a Thursday evening. The sun was streaming through the windows in long amber bands, and the light landed on the bare walls in a way he'd never noticed in 4 years of living there. Without furniture, without clutter, the space felt enormous, like he'd been living in a closet and didn't know there was a whole room around him. His footsteps echoed off the hardwood. He expected to feel gutted. Instead, standing on the bare hardwood, he just felt quiet. The buzzing in his skull had stopped. He felt light, untethered, like the morning after a fever breaks. You're still weak, still wrung out, but the worst part is over, and you know it in your bones. That night, he sat cross-legged on the mattress with his cracked laptop and did something he'd been afraid to do for months. He looked at the full picture. Total from selling everything, furniture, electronics, clothes, gadgets, the car, came to just under $7,800. He'd already used about $900 to pay off the remaining financing on the TV and couch. He transferred $6,500 to his Visa account and kept $400 in checking as a razor-thin safety net. The remaining debt across all 3 cards, about $8,500, still a mountain, but for the first time in over a year, the number was going down, not up. And he left the browser tab open until the laptop screen timed out and went dark. Life after the purge was strange in ways he didn't expect. Without the TV, the evenings stretched out ahead of him with nothing to fill them. Without the car, mornings started earlier. A 2-mile walk to the office that he dreaded the first week and quietly loved by the third. He noticed things that had been right next to him for years. A mural on the side of the laundromat 2 blocks over. A bakery that left day-old bread in a box by the door at closing time. A park bench by the river where a group of old men played chess on Sunday mornings and argued about everything. He cooked every meal in his 1 pot. Noodles and beans became the rotation. Monday through Wednesday. No exceptions. Thursday, he'd treat himself to pasta. Weekends, he'd get creative with whatever was on clearance. Nothing you'd post anywhere, but it filled him up. And the grocery bill stayed under $30 a week. He borrowed books from the public library for the first time since freshman year of college, found a beat-up copy of Thoreau's Walden on the shelf and almost laughed out loud at the irony, a guy who went to the woods to live deliberately. And here was Nolan doing the same thing in a 1-bedroom apartment in Portland. His coworkers started noticing. Travis, who sat 2 desks over and had opinions about everything, asked him point-blank 1 lunch break what was going on. Where'd the gaming clips go? Why wasn't he ordering DoorDash anymore? Why did he look? And Travis used this exact word, quieter. Nolan shrugged. He hated when people turned a personal decision into a sermon. But Travis kept pushing, and eventually Nolan just gave it to him flat. I was going under, man. All that stuff I had, it wasn't mine. I was just renting it with money I didn't have, and it was dragging me to the bottom. Travis didn't say much after that. About 4 months after the purge, on a Sunday evening when the apartment was quiet and the debt was finally below $5,000, Nolan did something he'd been putting off since the night Jess walked out. He picked up his phone and typed a message, deleted it, typed another one, deleted that too. On the third try, he just wrote, "Hey, I know it's been a while. I've been thinking about what you said. You were right about all of it. I was wondering if you'd want to get coffee sometime," she replied the next morning. Short, kind, careful. The way people write when they've already moved on, but don't want to be cruel about it. She said she was glad he was doing better. She said she'd thought about him too, and then she said she'd started seeing someone, a guy from her roommate's friend group. Nothing serious yet, but enough that coffee felt complicated. Nolan read the message twice, set the phone face down on the mattress, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. It didn't sting the way he thought it would. It was more like reaching for something on a high shelf and realizing your arms just aren't long enough. It didn't gut him. It just sucked. Realizing he'd let her slip away while he was staring at his bank app, and by the time you turn around, they've already gone somewhere you can follow. He didn't reply right away. When he did, he kept it simple. "I'm happy for you, Jess. I really am. Take care of yourself." She hearted the message, and that was that. 7 months after the purge, Nolan's credit card balance sat at a little under $3,000. Not zero. Not even close to comfortable. He still ate noodles and beans. He still slept on a mattress on the floor. His apartment looked like someone had just moved in and the furniture truck got lost. Sometimes, late at night, with the windows open and the city humming below, he missed things. The warmth of a couch on a rainy Sunday, the rumble of a subwoofer during a movie, the sound of someone you love humming in the next room while they make coffee. Nobody clapped. He didn't write a blog about living with less. He just woke up the next day, he ate his beans, and caught the bus to work, cooked in his one pot, read on his mattress, and month by month, dollar by dollar, watched the debt get smaller. But here's the thing that changed. The part that actually mattered to him when everything else fell away. The panic attacks faded. He could look at his phone again, and he quit buying random head-traded Jess for a financed leather couch and a gaming rig. A stupid math error he couldn't undo. He just figured it out too late. One evening, about 7 months in, he was washing his single plate in the kitchen sink. The window above the counter was cracked open, and a warm breeze drifted in carrying the smell of coming rain. His hands were in the warm water, soap suds up to his wrists, and he realized he was humming. Just some tune from somewhere. Nothing he could name. But he hadn't hummed in years. Hadn't had the bandwidth for something that useless and that good in a long, long time. He cleared out the clutter. The apartment was stripped bare, and for the first time in years, he could actually breathe without choking on his own choices. He found it by doing the scariest thing he'd ever done, getting rid of everything. And the punchline was most of that stuff had been the problem the whole time. The apartment is still mostly empty. Nolan is still mostly broke. The photo from Cannon Beach sits propped against the wall by the mattress, a little blurry, a little off-center, the only decoration in the whole place. Sometimes he looks at it before he falls asleep, and wonders what would have happened if he'd listened sooner. Late in the afternoon, the sun hit the bare drywall. Nolan stood up and stretched his back and went to the kitchen to boil water for noodles.